The day started like any other. I had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift at work, exhausted but excited. I stopped by the florist and picked up a bouquet of Sophia's favorite white lilies, then swung by the liquor store to grab a bottle of Pinot Noir, her preferred choice. It had been a while since we had a quiet night together, and I wanted to make it special. I whistled as I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark, except for a faint glow coming from the upstairs window, our bedroom. My heart swelled with warmth. She must be waiting for me upstairs. But as soon as I stepped inside, something felt off. It was subtle at first. The air had a strange heaviness, like the weight of a secret pressing down on the walls. The scent of vanilla candles mixed with something else, sweat, musk, and a scent I shouldn't have recognized but did. A pit formed in my stomach. Then I heard it. A moan. A woman's moan. Sophia's moan. I froze in place, my grip tightening around the wine bottle. My pulse pounded in my ears. No, it can't be what I think it is. But the rhythmic creaking of the bed, the muffled giggles, and the breathless gasps painted a picture I did not want to see. My feet felt like lead as I walked up the stairs. Each step sent a jolt of ice through my veins. My hands trembled as I reached for the bedroom door, my heart slamming against my ribs. I pushed it open, and then my world shattered. There she was, Sophia, my wife of 10 years, the mother of my children, the woman I had built a life with, laying on her back, her legs wrapped around another man. Not just any man. William fucking Lancaster. Her boss. A rich, arrogant prick who had always looked at me with condescension. A man I had trusted at company parties, exchanging polite handshakes while he was secretly screwing my wife. Sophia's eyes widened in horror when she saw me. For a split second, her face was frozen in an expression of raw panic. But then, something changed. She relaxed. William, on the other hand, scrambled to cover himself with the sheets, looking more annoyed than ashamed. "Oh shit," William muttered, sitting up. Sophia, still naked, didn't even bother to cover herself. Instead, she sighed and rolled her eyes. "Really, Jason? You couldn't have knocked?" I stared, unable to process what I was hearing. "What the hell?" My voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. My body felt detached, like I was watching this from outside myself. Sophia sighed again, sitting up, completely unbothered. "Look, Jason, let's not make a big deal out of this." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. "Not make a big deal out of this?" I gestured wildly at the scene before me. "You're fucking your boss in our bed, and you're acting like I walked in on you doing yoga." William smirked. "Yeah, buddy," he said casually, leaning back against my pillows. "You should have seen this coming." I felt something snap inside me. My hands curled into fists, my entire body shaking with fury. "You son of a..." I took a step forward, but Sophia's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Oh, grow up, Jason." I turned to her, stunned. She was glaring at me, as if I was the one who had done something wrong. "I mean, come on," she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Did you really think I'd stay satisfied with a man like you forever?" My stomach twisted into knots. "A man like me?" Sophia scoffed. "Jason, you're average. You work long hours at a boring job, and you barely make enough money to give me the life I deserve. William," she gestured toward the asshole sitting on my bed, "understands what a woman needs." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You gotta be fucking kidding me," I muttered. William stretched, completely at ease, as if he belonged here more than I did. "Look, buddy, don't take it personally. Some men are just better at taking care of women. And let's be honest, Sophia was never going to stick around with a loser like you." I took a step forward, fist clenched. "Say that again, you piece of shit." William smirked, but didn't move. "What, you gonna hit me? Go ahead. But I'll have you arrested for assault faster than you can say divorce." Sophia let out a fake gasp. "Oh my God, Jason, don't be pathetic. You wouldn't stand a chance against him anyway." I turned to her, my blood running ice cold. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" She crossed her arms. "I mean, I did just have a good time." She gave William a wicked smile. Twice. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to rip the entire room apart. But before I could react, another voice entered the room. one that sent a fresh wave of rage crashing over me. "Oh, Jason, stop being so dramatic." I turned my head slowly. Standing in the doorway, arms crossed, looking unimpressed, was my mother. I felt like the air had been sucked from the room. "Mom?" I stood there, heart pounding, unable to process what I was seeing. My own mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the aftermath of my wife's betrayal like it was nothing more than an inconvenient argument over dinner. Linda, the woman who raised me, who wiped my scraped knees, who promised she'd always have my back, was looking at me not with anger, not with sympathy, but with sheer annoyance. She sighed, rubbing her temples as if I was the problem here. "Oh, Jason, don't be so dramatic," she said, shaking her head. "Men cheat all the time. Why is it so shocking when a woman does it?" For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. My brain refused to accept the words coming out of her mouth. "What?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. Sophia, still sitting on my bed, still naked, still smirking, shrugged. "She's right, Jason. It's not like I murdered someone. You're acting like such a child." My fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. I turned to my mother, searching her face for anything, remorse, guilt, even just a sliver of regret. There was nothing. "Are you serious right now?" I asked, my voice rising. Linda gave me a look like I was embarrassing her. "Of course, I'm serious. Jason, you've always been so sensitive. That's probably part of the reason Sophia looked elsewhere in the first place." My breath caught in my throat. Sophia sighed, leaning back against my pillows. "Look, you're not exactly the best husband, Jason. Maybe if you had paid more attention," I snapped. "Are you actually blaming me?" I shouted, stepping forward. "So it's my fault you decided to spread your legs for your boss?" William, who had been sitting quietly, finally spoke up. "Whoa, buddy," he said, holding up a hand. "No need to get nasty. Let's keep this civil, all right?" I turned to him, rage bubbling over. "Civil?" I growled. "You're fucking my wife in my own bed, and you want to keep this civil?" William chuckled, shaking his head. "Listen, man, I get it. This is tough for you. But let's not act like you didn't see this coming." I wanted to punch him. God, I wanted to punch him. Sophia ran a hand through her hair, completely unbothered. "Look, Jason, let's not drag this out. It happened, okay? It's not a big deal." I stared at her, incredulous. "Not a big deal?" Linda stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Jason, listen to me. If you divorce Sophia over a tiny mistake, you can never call me your mother again." I felt like I had been hit with a sledgehammer. I turned to her slowly, my mind barely able to keep up with what was happening. "What the fuck did you just say?" Linda crossed her arms. I said, "If you leave her over this, then you're no son of mine." For a moment, all I could do was stare. Then, I let out a cold, humorless laugh. "Unbelievable. Unbelievable." Linda didn't flinch. "It was just sex, Jason. Grow up." William chuckled again, shaking his head. "She's got a point. You are overreacting." I turned to Sophia. "And you? Do you even feel bad about this?" She met my gaze, and to my utter disbelief, she actually smirked. "I don't owe you an apology," she said, standing up and stretching, completely shameless. "Either accept it, or get out." My pulse roared in my ears. My hands were shaking. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to do something, to yell, to break something, to fight back. But then Sophia delivered the final blow. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "And my kids?" She tilted her head, smiling like she had won. "You leave," she said softly. "You never see them again." I felt the ground shift beneath me. Everything inside me twisted into something dark, something dangerous. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at my wife, my mother, William fucking Lancaster. And in that moment, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. No, I was going to destroy them, and they wouldn't see it coming. The morning sun had barely begun to rise when I sat at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of black coffee. My hands were steady now, no more shaking, no more rage clouding my mind. Just cold calculation. Sophia and my mother were still asleep upstairs, tangled in the luxury of their betrayal. William was probably back at his penthouse, smug as ever. They thought they had won. But by the time they woke up, their perfect little world would be turned inside out. I moved quietly, methodically. First, I gathered everything important: passports, birth certificates, social security cards, financial statements, and the emergency cash I had been stashing away for years. I emptied out my bank account, knowing Sophia would try to freeze me out the moment she realized what had happened. Next, I packed only the essentials: clothes for me and the kids, a few sentimental items, and my laptop. The rest, I left behind. Let Sophia keep the fancy furniture, the designer handbags, and the overpriced decor she used to impress her shallow friends. She could keep the house, but I was taking something far more valuable: my children. I walked into my kids' room, my heart twisting painfully. Liam, my 8-year-old son, was curled up with his favorite stuffed dinosaur, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Next to him, in her crib, was Emma, barely 3, her tiny fingers clutching her bunny. They were innocent. They had no idea that their mother had chosen herself over them. I crouched beside Liam, gently shaking his shoulder. His eyes fluttered open, groggy. "Dad," he mumbled sleepily. "Hey, bud," I whispered. "I need you to wake up, okay? We're going on an adventure." Liam blinked, still half asleep, but nodded. He trusted me. He always had. I picked up Emma, careful not to wake her, and wrapped her in her favorite blanket. She stirred slightly, but settled against my chest. I carried them both downstairs, loading them into the back seat of my SUV. Liam sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Where's Mommy?" he asked, still groggy. I paused. "Mommy isn't coming with us," I said finally, my voice even. Liam frowned, his small face scrunching in confusion. "But why?" I forced a smile. "Because this is just our adventure." He thought about that for a moment before nodding. "Okay, Dad." I ruffled his hair, my chest tightening. He was too good for her. Too good for all of them. With one last glance at the house that had once been a home, I got in the driver's seat and pulled out of the driveway. And just like that, we were gone. I was nearly 3 hours away when my phone started ringing. I ignored it. It rang again and again. Then the messages started flooding in. First from Sophia. "Jason, where the fuck are you? The house is empty." Then from Linda. "Jason, stop this nonsense and bring the kids back right now." Then Sophia again. "You are making a huge mistake. If you don't come back, I swear to God you will never see your kids again." I smirked, shaking my head. Oh, the irony. Then the calls turned frantic. Sophia tried to FaceTime me. Declined. Linda left a voicemail, her voice shaking. "Jason, listen to me. I know you're upset, but this isn't the way to handle things. You need to bring the kids back. If you do it now, we can fix this." Sophia didn't mean what she said. She was just emotional. "Please, sweetheart." I laughed bitterly and hit delete. And then something interesting happened. William called. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. "What do you want?" I said coldly. William's voice was tight, with controlled frustration. "Listen, man, we don't have to make this ugly. Bring the kids back, and we'll figure this out like adults." I let out a short laugh. "Like adults? You mean like how you fucked my wife in my bed?" William sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "Look, Jason, we both knew Sophia was never going to stay with you long term. You weren't enough for her, and deep down, you know it. But that doesn't mean you should take it out on the kids." I clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. "You really think you have a say in how I handle my children?" William's voice dropped, his tone sharpening. "You don't want to do this, man. You're going to regret it." I smiled. "No, William. You're going to regret it." And with that, I hung up. Back at the house, chaos had erupted. Sophia was pacing back and forth, her face red with frustration. "He took them, Mom. He fucking took them." Linda sat stiffly on the couch, her fingers gripping her phone. "He won't do anything stupid. He's just throwing a tantrum." Sophia scoffed. "This isn't a tantrum. He vanished. His phone is off, his accounts are drained, and he didn't leave a single goddamn clue where he went." Linda frowned. "So what do we do?" Sophia exhaled sharply. "We call the police." The moment Sophia walked into the police station, she had a script ready. She put on her best concerned mother act, crocodile tears forming in her eyes as she approached the officer at the desk. "Please, you have to help me," she said, voice shaking. My husband, he took our children and disappeared. I don't know where they are. The officer frowned. Ma'am, is there a custody agreement in place? Sophia hesitated. No, we've never needed one. But this isn't normal. He just took them. The officer sighed. Ma'am, as their father, he has every legal right to take his children unless a court order states otherwise. Sophia's jaw clenched. So you're saying there's nothing you can do? I can file a report, the officer said. But unless you have evidence that your children are in danger, there's no legal action we can take at this moment. Sophia's hands curled into fists. This wasn't supposed to happen. Jason was supposed to cry, beg, grovel. He was supposed to accept it, not disappear with her children. For the first time, a sick, uneasy feeling settled in her gut. Jason wasn't coming back. And for the first time since she had been caught, she felt something she hadn't expected. Fear. I sat on the balcony of a small, rented cabin in another state, the cool night air brushing against my face. My kids were inside, safe, sound, happy. Sophia and Linda thought they had won. They thought I would be weak. But I wasn't weak. Not anymore. I was just getting started. And this was only the beginning of their nightmare. I sat in the small motel room, the dull hum of the television filling the silence. My kids were napping, their small chests rising and falling peacefully. They had no idea how much their world had just changed. I had managed to get us across state lines, secured a rental under a different name, and set up new bank accounts. Everything was going according to plan. Then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Mom, I let it ring. Then it rang again and again. I sighed, finally answering. What do you want? Her voice was panicked, breathless. Jason, you need to come to the hospital. I almost laughed. Oh, now she wants to talk? Why would I do that? I asked coldly. Linda sniffled on the other end. Something terrible happened. I leaned back in my chair, unconcerned. That's so. She hesitated. Please, Jason, just come. I almost hung up, but curiosity won out. What the hell happened now? When I arrived at the hospital, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Sophia was curled up in a chair in the waiting room. Her expensive dress wrinkled, mascara smeared down her cheeks. Her entire body was trembling. Linda sat beside her, hands clasped tightly, looking genuinely shaken for the first time. Then I saw the reason for their distress. Through the glass window of the hospital room, I spotted William fucking Lancaster, and he looked like he had been run over by a truck. His nose was a swollen mess, his left eye was completely shut, his lip was split open, and his entire face was covered in bruises. His right arm was in a cast, and I could see the tight bandages wrapped around his ribs. Jesus. I let out a low whistle. Damn, someone really didn't like you. Sophia looked up, her eyes filled with fear. It was his wife, she whispered. I blinked. His wife? She nodded, her whole body shaking. She found out about us, Sophia continued, her voice hoarse. She snapped. She attacked William, broke his nose, kicked his ribs in. And then she took everything. I raised an eyebrow. Everything. Sophia swallowed hard. She drained their bank accounts, wiped them clean. She already filed for divorce, and since their prenup was in her favor, William gets nothing. No money, no assets, nothing. I smirked. Karma's a bitch, huh? Linda reached out, grabbing my arm with desperation in her grip. Jason, please, she begged. I was wrong. Help us. I yanked my arm away as disgust flooded my veins. Oh, now you need my help? I sneered. After telling me to just accept my wife screwing her boss? After calling me overly sensitive? Linda flinched. I didn't mean. I cut her off. No, you didn't mean it. You chose them over me. Sophia reached for me, her hands shaking. Jason, please, I stepped back, looking her dead in the eyes. You don't get to beg now, I said coldly. Her lip trembled. I made a mistake. I let out a bitter chuckle. No, Sophia. You made a choice. Her eyes darted toward the hospital room where William lay unconscious. I thought he was the better option, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I tilted my head. And how's that working out for you? She sucked in a sharp breath. I lost everything. I crossed my arms. Not everything, I said. You still have my mom? Linda's face twisted in shame. Jason, please don't do this. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. You made your choice. Then I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving them to deal with the wreckage of their own making. And it felt damn good. I had been expecting this moment. For weeks, I watched from a distance as Sophia's perfect little world came crashing down around her. Piece by piece, everything she had built, everything she sacrificed me for was destroyed. It started with William. The company couldn't afford a scandal, and as soon as news spread about his affair with a subordinate, he was shown the door. No severance, no goodwill, just a humiliating exit through the back door of the company he once ruled. Then came his divorce. His wife moved fast. She had been sitting on proof of his infidelities for months, just waiting for the right moment to strike. When she found out about Sophia, she snapped publicly and legally. William didn't just lose his money. He lost his house, his investments, his reputation. He had nothing left but hospital bills and a pile of debt. As for Sophia, she was fired shortly after William. The company cited ethical misconduct, and no other respectable firm would hire her. Word had spread. Her name was poison. She had traded a good man for an illusion of luxury. And now she had nothing. Linda called every few days, leaving messages I never listened to. At first, they were angry. Jason, you can't just cut me off like this. I am your mother. Then they turned desperate. I made a mistake, I see that now. Please, son. I don't want to lose you. Then, pathetic. I don't have anyone left, Jason. Please don't do this to me. I deleted every message without a second thought. She had made her choice. Now she could live with it. It happened late one night. A soft knock echoed through my quiet house. I knew who it was before I even checked the peephole. I took my time opening the door, and there she stood, Sophia. She looked nothing like the woman I had once loved. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled and unkempt. Her blonde hair was tangled. Her once pristine makeup smudged beneath her tired eyes. She looked thinner, her face hollow from stress. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, Jason, please. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Please what? Her lips trembled. Please, just hear me out. I studied her, my expression unreadable. Why would I do that? She swallowed hard. Because I have nothing left. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. That's not my problem. She flinched, as if the words physically hurt her. I know I messed up. I was stupid and selfish, and she sucked in a shaky breath. I lost everything, Jason. William is broke. My career is over. I have no one left but you. I let out a bitter chuckle. No, Sophia, you don't even have that. Her face crumpled. Please, she whispered again. I regret it, Jason. I do. Every single day. I tilted my head. You regret what? Exactly? Getting caught. Tears welled in her eyes. No, I regret hurting you. I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Oh, now you regret it? Was it before or after William lost everything? Before or after you lost your job? Before or after I took our kids and left you with nothing? Sophia whimpered. I wasn't thinking. No, you were thinking. I cut her off sharply. You thought William was the better option. You thought you could treat me like trash, and I would just take it. You thought I would be too weak to walk away. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. You didn't just cheat, Sophia. You mocked me. You belittled me. You let that pathetic excuse for a man disrespect me in my own goddamn home. I took a step forward, forcing her to shrink back. And when I caught you, you didn't even apologize. You told me to accept it or get out. You threatened to take my children away from me. Sophia sobbed, her hands trembling. I wasn't thinking straight. No, you just didn't care, I snapped. She covered her face, her whole body shaking. Jason, I don't expect you to forgive me, she choked out. I just want another chance. I stared at her, expression blank. Another chance? I repeated. She nodded quickly. Yes, I know I don't deserve it, but I can change. I'll do anything. Please, just don't shut me out. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger. I felt pity. Sophia wasn't sorry, because she had realized the depth of her betrayal. She was sorry because she had nowhere else to go. I let the silence drag on until she finally whispered, Can I at least see the kids? My jaw tightened. No, her breath hitched. Please, Jason. I exhaled slowly, then leaned in, lowering my voice. You made your bed, Sophia. Then, with cruel finality, I said the words that sealed her fate. Now lie in it. I stepped back and slammed the door in her face. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the sound of her muffled sobs on the other side. She stayed there for a few minutes, waiting, hoping I would change my mind. I didn't. Finally, she let out one last broken sob and staggered away. I watched from the window as she disappeared into the darkness, and I felt nothing. Not guilt, not regret, just peace. Because for the first time in years, I was free. The night was cold. A sharp wind howled through the empty street, rattling the trees and sending dead leaves skittering across the pavement. The dim porch light flickered above us, casting shadows over Sophia's face, making her look even more broken than she already was. But it wasn't the weather that made her tremble. It was me. For the first time since I had known her, she had no power over me. No smugness. No cruelty. Just raw, desperate fear. She fell to her knees. Please, Jason, she sobbed, gripping my pant leg as if it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. I made a mistake. I crossed my arms, staring down at her without an ounce of sympathy. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. A mistake? I repeated, tilting my head. Funny. I thought you said you didn't owe me an apology. Sophia flinched. Her lips quivered, and for the first time in her miserable life, she looked truly ashamed. I was stupid, she wailed, her fingers tightening around the fabric of my jeans. I was selfish. I lost everything. I nodded slowly. Yeah, you did. Her sobs became choked gasps as she struggled to form words. Please, Jason, let's fix this. For the kids. At that, I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. The kids? I echoed, crouching down to her level. You didn't care about them when you were screwing William in my bed. She whimpered, shaking her head violently. No, I do care. I thought I could have both. I let the silence stretch between us, my stare unblinking. Then, in a low, icy whisper, I said, and you thought wrong. Sophia sobbed harder, her hands moving to clasp together in a pathetic display of pleading. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, Jason, but please, please. I'll do anything. My stomach twisted, not with regret, not with doubt, but with sheer disgust. I had once loved this woman, given her everything, and now here she was, reduced to a pathetic, begging mess, stripped of every ounce of superiority she once held over me. You should have thought about that, I murmured, my voice calm, deliberate, before you burned it all to the ground. Then I stood. Her eyes widened in terror as I reached for the door. No, no, please, she cried, scrambling forward on her knees, trying to wedge herself inside before I could close it. Jason, don't do this. I love you, I love you. I hesitated for half a second, just long enough to see the raw desperation in her face. Then I stepped back and slammed the door in her face. For several seconds, there was silence. Then, a broken, anguished wail tore through the night. I didn't watch her leave. Didn't wait to see if she'd knock again. Instead, I turned away, exhaling slowly. Because for the first time in years, I didn't just walk away from Sophia. I left her behind. The days after I slammed the door in Sophia's face felt oddly peaceful. The chaos, the guilt, the anger, the constant noise had finally quieted. I had taken control. I had won. But as I sat in the quiet of my living room one evening, sipping a glass of whiskey, the calm was shattered by an email notification. I glanced at my phone. It was from an anonymous address, though I had no doubt who it was from. I opened it, curiosity mixing with a growing sense of dread. Jason, I know what you did. I know you took your kids, and I know you're hiding them. If you don't give me money, and I mean a lot of money, I will tell everyone that you kidnapped them. I'll make sure you never see your kids again. You don't want me to do that, do you? William Lancaster. I laughed. It started as a low chuckle, bubbling up from deep within my chest, before growing into a full, bitter laugh. William, of all the idiotic things to do. The man had already lost everything. his job, his wealth, his dignity. And now, he was trying to extort me? I shook my head, taking another sip of my drink. The nerve of him. He didn't understand the kind of man he was dealing with. I sat there for a moment, mulling over his threats. Could he really make me out to be a kidnapper? Could he ruin everything I had worked for, everything I had built in my new life? The answer was simple. No. I had no intention of letting this go unanswered. I grabbed my laptop, fired it up, and opened a new email. It was time to turn the tables. I attached the email from William and sent it to the police department with a quick message. To whom it may concern, attached is an email from William Lancaster. He is attempting to extort me under false pretenses. Please investigate this matter and take appropriate action. Best regards, Jason. I clicked send, then leaned back in my chair. That was that. The next morning I got a call. Mr. Taylor? Yes. Detective Harper. We received your email. We've already traced the IP address and have begun investigating William Lancaster for extortion. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll keep you updated. I thanked the officer, but deep down, I already knew it was over for William. By midday, the news hit. William had been arrested. It wasn't just extortion. He had a history of shady dealings, and his latest attempt to blackmail me had been the final nail in his coffin. The police weren't taking it lightly. William was facing charges for attempted extortion, and with his criminal record, it wouldn't be long before he was convicted. But what about Sophia? I thought about her for a moment. She had lost it all. Her career, her lover, her reputation. She had betrayed me, used me, humiliated me, and now she had to face the consequences of her choices. I felt no sympathy. She had made her bed. Now she could lie in it. The following week, William's arrest became the talk of the town. The news outlets covered it like it was the biggest scandal to hit the city. The once promising businessman, the man who had everything, now sat behind bars, his life in ruins. Sophia, though, she was nowhere to be found. I heard rumors. She had moved back in with her parents, her mother's house, no less, and was trying to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. The weight of what she had lost was finally sinking in. Her lover was in prison, and her betrayal had cost her not just me, but everything she had ever cared about. I smiled. Somehow, it felt good to know that every piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. William was done. Sophia was broken. And me? I was free. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the taste of victory. The days after William's arrest had been oddly quiet. The peace I had sought for so long had finally arrived, but the feeling was not what I had expected. It wasn't relief or a sense of accomplishment. No, it was something deeper, more complex. Something I hadn't anticipated: freedom. I sat at the kitchen table one late afternoon, a cup of coffee in front of me, the light streaming through the window casting shadows across the room. My fingers traced the edge of the divorce papers, the final step in closing the chapter on my marriage. I had waited long enough. I picked up the pen. The ink on the page felt cold, mechanical, but the weight of what it symbolized was anything but. This wasn't just a legal formality. This was final. I signed, and then I sent the papers to Sophia. The phone rang almost immediately. I let it go to voicemail. I knew it was her. The next call came a few minutes later. I answered. Jason, please listen to me. Sophia's voice was frantic, a mix of desperation and disbelief. You don't have to do this. We can fix this. We can fix everything. I took a slow breath, leaning back in my chair. Her words didn't faze me. In fact, they almost felt distant. I've signed the papers, Sophia, I said flatly, my voice devoid of emotion. You should have thought about this before you fucked William in our bed. Before you tore everything apart. There was silence on the other end. A long, drawn-out silence that stretched on just a little too long. Then her voice came again, barely a whisper, but laced with raw, painful emotion. I'll change, Jason. I swear. I swear I'll be different. I'll do whatever it takes. Please, just don't do this. I felt a flicker of something. Was it pity? No. It was disgust. You think you can change? I asked, the bitterness creeping into my tone. You think you can undo everything? You think you can take it all back after what you did? It's too late, Sophia. I could hear her sobbing now, the sound raw and jagged. Please, Jason. Please don't leave me with nothing. You're all I have left. The words hit me harder than I expected, but I shoved the feeling down. This wasn't about her anymore. This wasn't about us. I'm not leaving you with nothing, Sophia, I replied, each word carefully measured. I'm leaving you with nothing. Because that's what you deserve. Her voice cracked as she pleaded again. Please don't take the kids away. Don't take them from me. I felt a coldness settle over me, one that went deeper than just my marriage. I'm not taking them away, Sophia. You lost them the moment you chose William over your family. You lost everything the moment you decided to betray me. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing heavily, a tremor in her voice. I'm sorry, Jason, she whispered, the words weak, almost broken. Sorry doesn't cut it, I replied, my tone final. You had every chance to make it right, and you chose wrong. Then I hung up. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, court dates, and papers being signed. It was all formality now. The lawyers on both sides went through the motions, but I knew the outcome before it even began. Sophia lost everything. She lost custody of the kids, at least for now. The court had determined she wasn't fit to raise them after everything that had transpired. She lost the house. The property that had once been our home was now in my name, with no way for her to contest it. And she lost me. I sat on the couch late one evening, looking through the papers one last time. Everything was in order. Everything was done. I heard a knock at the door. I stood and walked over slowly, no rush, no hesitation. When I opened the door, there stood Sophia. Her face was red from crying, her eyes hollow and empty. She was a shell of the woman who had once been so sure of herself, so smug in her betrayal. I don't know what to say, Jason, she whispered, her voice fragile, almost broken. You don't have to say anything, I replied, my voice calm and unyielding. You've said everything already. She looked at me, searching my eyes, hoping for some kind of flicker of warmth, some trace of the man she had once known. But there was nothing. I tried to warn you, Sophia, I continued, my voice colder than ice. I tried to be patient. I gave you chances. You chose William. Now you get to live with the consequences. I was stupid, she murmured, her voice cracking with shame. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could have it all. I shook my head slowly, looking down at the divorce papers one last time. You thought wrong. Sophia stood there for a long time, just looking at me, as if expecting me to change my mind, to tell her everything would be okay. But I wasn't going to do that. There was no going back. As she turned and walked away, I felt a strange emptiness in my chest. Not because I missed her, not because I cared, but because for the first time, I realized that I was free. She had taken everything from me, but in the end, I had taken it all back. And in that moment, I understood. This was the beginning of my life. I had no more chains, no more lies, no more guilt, just freedom. Years had passed since that fateful day when I signed the divorce papers and severed the final ties with Sophia. The pain and bitterness from the betrayal had faded over time, like a scar that, though still there, no longer consumed me. Life had a way of moving forward, whether you were ready for it or not, and slowly I started rebuilding. I moved into a new house, a fresh start in every sense of the word. It was smaller than the place I had shared with Sophia, but it was mine. The walls didn't hold the memories of her betrayal or the lies we'd shared. The floors were untainted, unmarked by the weight of regret. I focused on my work, on being the best father I could be to my kids, and most importantly, on healing. But it wasn't just my work or my children that kept me grounded. I had one other thing that kept my heart full me. For the first time in years, I was me again. Not a husband, not a victim of betrayal, not a man defined by someone else's choices. Just Jason. I had freedom, and with that freedom came new possibilities. It was at a local coffee shop where I first saw her. Her name was Lily. She was sitting by the window, reading a book, the soft golden light spilling over her, creating a halo that made her look like she had just stepped out of a dream. She didn't look like the women I was used to, nothing like Sophia. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She didn't have an air of arrogance about her. Instead, she was kind, thoughtful, and somehow, despite the world around her, she exuded calm. I noticed her first because she looked real. There was no pretense, no need for validation. She was just herself. At first, it was just small conversations. I found myself visiting that coffee shop more often, coincidentally sitting at a table near hers. Over time, we shared more stories about our lives, our hopes, our pasts. She listened when I talked about my kids and my experiences. But she didn't judge. She didn't pity me. And when I opened up about the pain of my past, she didn't run away or recoil. She just held space for me. That was what I needed. After a few months, we began dating. Slowly, like two cautious souls testing the waters, not wanting to rush into anything. But every moment with Lily felt right. She was patient with me, never pushing, never asking for more than I was ready to give. And as time passed, I realized how much I'd missed being with someone who didn't carry baggage, who didn't bring drama into my life. Lily was different. She was everything I had been craving without even knowing it. It was a sunny afternoon when I introduced Lily to my kids for the first time. The moment I saw their faces light up when they met her, I knew I had made the right choice. She wasn't their mother, but she was kind and patient with them, and they responded to that. It was a relief to see them smiling, laughing with her, their hearts slowly opening to someone new, someone who treated them like they were special. The relationship with my children healed. They were happy. They were whole. And so was I. But as my life grew brighter, Sophia's remained in the shadows. She had tried to reach out to me a few times, sending messages, trying to contact me through mutual friends, but I ignored every one of them. There was no reason to engage with the past when the future was so much better. One afternoon, while Lily and I were walking through the park with the kids, I spotted her. Sophia, standing across the street, her eyes fixed on me. Her face was drawn, pale, and tired-looking, but it was unmistakably her. I froze for a second, my heart thudding in my chest. It had been so long since I'd seen her, and the sight of her felt like a ghost. It was the first time I'd seen her since the divorce, since the wreckage of our life together. She saw me too. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she just stared at me, this broken woman who had once been my wife, the woman who had torn our life apart. She looked fragile, like a person who had been hollowed out, eaten alive by regret and mistakes. And then she saw Lily. Lily, who was standing next to me, holding my hand as we laughed together. Lily, who had woven her way into my heart and into the hearts of my kids. The one who had quietly stepped into the place where Sophia once was, but had done it with grace, kindness, and genuine love. I saw Sophia's face fall. There was a flicker of recognition, a flash of something darker in her eyes. Was it jealousy? Pain? Anger? Or just maybe a mix of all three. "Jason," Sophia called out, her voice strained. She took a step toward me, her hand reaching out, but then she hesitated, unsure. "Jason, I need to talk to you. Please." Just for a second, Lily squeezed my hand, her grip a subtle reminder that this moment was not for the past. It was for us. I looked at Sophia, my gaze cold. There's nothing left to say. Her face flushed, her mouth opening and closing, searching for the right words, but nothing came out. She just stood there, watching, unable to move closer. Then I turned away. I didn't look back. I walked with Lily, my kids, and the life I had built. The life that had once seemed so out of reach, now fully within my grasp. And as I walked away, I heard Sophia's voice tremble on the wind. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jason." But it was too late. As the years continued, I never looked back. Sophia's words, her apologies, they meant nothing now. She had her chance to make it right, and she had thrown it all away. I had built a life of love, of trust, of stability. I had rebuilt the family that was shattered, this time on my terms. And as for Sophia, while she was a part of my past, the chapter 1 had closed. I didn't need to carry her baggage anymore, because now I had a future. Time passed. The years moved forward like the steady ticking of a clock, indifferent to the pain of the past, unmoved by the consequences of betrayal. For Sophia and Linda, the consequences were harsh, relentless, and irreversible. After everything had unraveled, they found themselves alone in a world they didn't know how to navigate anymore. Sophia had tried to pick up the pieces of her life, but it was too late. There were no second chances, no do-overs. The person she had once been was gone, swallowed whole by her own selfish choices. Sophia's life was a slow, painful decline. After the divorce, she moved into a shabby apartment, far from the life of luxury she had once enjoyed. The lavish dinners, the expensive clothes, the boss who had once promised her a future, they were all gone. William had been fired from his prestigious job, his reputation in tatters after his criminal behavior caught up with him. The affair had cost him everything, and Sophia, blinded by her need for validation and desire for a life she couldn't afford, was left picking up the shattered pieces of her own existence. She took up a low-paying office job, one that barely covered rent and food. Her once beautiful, self-assured demeanor had wilted, leaving behind a woman who was a mere shadow of herself. The sparkle in her eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, lifeless stare. She tried to reach out to the kids, but they were distant, cold. They didn't want her in their lives anymore. They didn't trust her. She spent countless nights alone, scrolling through old photos of better times, photos of us when we were a family. But those images now only served as reminders of how far she had fallen, of the mistakes she could never undo. And then there was Linda. My mother, Linda, had never been one to back down from her convictions. She had told me, with all her pompous certainty, that I was overreacting, that I should forgive and forget. But now, those words had come back to haunt her. She had spent years guilt-tripping me, pushing me to accept the unacceptable, telling me I was the one who had failed to see the bigger picture. And when Sophia's life fell apart, Linda wasn't exempt from the fallout. She tried to visit Sophia, tried to fix things, but the damage had been done. Sophia, for all her pride and stubbornness, was broken. And Linda? She was left with a son who refused to speak to her, and a daughter-in-law who wouldn't even look her way. The mother I had once known, demanding, self-righteous, controlling, was now alone, without anyone to cling to. She called me a few times, but I never answered. I didn't need to speak to her to know what I had already learned. Her pride had been her downfall. She had spent years trying to convince me to forgive Sophia, to forget what happened. And now, she was the one facing the bitter truth of her own choices. No amount of apology would fix it. William's fate was sealed in a much more dramatic fashion. After trying to blackmail me, thinking I would buckle under pressure, he had only dug his own grave. The authorities had swiftly caught wind of his activities, his extortion attempt reaching the wrong ears. I forwarded the threatening email he had sent me to the police, and it wasn't long before William found himself facing charges that ranged from fraud to blackmail. He was arrested in the middle of the night, dragged out of his posh apartment in handcuffs. The irony of it all wasn't lost on me. The man who had everything, power, wealth, control, was now reduced to a criminal in a prison cell. William was convicted and sentenced to a long time behind bars. His former life, the one he had lived at Sophia's side, crumbled just as quickly as it had risen. His wealth and connections couldn't save him. In the end, all he had was a prison sentence and a reputation that would forever be tainted by his crimes. His life was over in every possible way. I never spoke to him again. There was no satisfaction in watching his downfall. It was more like watching an inevitable storm play out, something I had already anticipated. As for me, I was thriving. I had rebuilt everything from scratch, piece by piece, stone by stone. I had found peace in the chaos, solace in the pain, and I had found love again. Lily, my wife, was everything Sophia never was. She was loyal, compassionate, and understanding. She loved me and my children, and she never asked for more than I was able to give. She didn't demand or manipulate. She just loved. And that was enough. It was more than enough. Our family flourished. The kids grew older, more secure, their laughter filling the home every day. We had family dinners, holidays, and birthdays, moments that were once so far out of reach for me. I had found happiness again. I had found peace. And when Sophia saw me with Lily walking through the park one afternoon, my arm around her waist and the kids running ahead, I saw the look in her eyes. It was a look I'd seen before, desperation mixed with regret. She had tried to reach out, of course. She had tried to make amends, tried to crawl her way back into my life. But I was done. She was no longer a part of my world. Her apologies, her pleas, they meant nothing to me now. We were walking hand in hand when she appeared in the distance. She stopped in her tracks, watching us. Her gaze shifted from me to Lily and then back to me. There was something broken in her eyes, a silent acknowledgement that she had lost me forever. Lily looked up at me, her eyes soft, understanding. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I squeezed her hand, smiled, and nodded. "Yeah, I'm good. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." As Sophia's figure faded into the background, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of closure. The past was over, the debts had been paid, and I was free, truly free. And that, in the end, was the ultimate revenge. Not the pain, not the suffering, not the torment that Sophia and Linda had endured. No, the real revenge was in living well, in building a life that was whole, that was mine. A life full of love, of happiness, and of peace. Because in the end, no amount of regret, no amount of begging could ever undo the damage they had caused. The best revenge? It wasn't about retaliation. It wasn't about watching them suffer. It was simply about living the life I had earned, the life they could never touch. The best revenge was in living well, and I was living better than I ever thought possible.